Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul and with the Dicey Review, and today we're going to be learning how to play the 2 to 4 player game Pokemon Splendor. Now, this version of the game currently isn't available in English, but it is available online, and the game is fairly language independent, so once you know how to play, you should be good to go should you pick this one up. So, without further ado, let's get to the table and see how to play. Pokemon Splendor comes with all of the components that you see here, including a Pokédex sheet, 90 total Pokemon cards split into levels 1 through 3, and then 5 each that are rare and legendary, 4 trainer tiles, a start player marker, and 40 total Pokeball tokens. To set up, begin by first separately shuffling the level 1, 2, and 3 cards and then placing them as face-down stacks in the center of the play area. Then reveal 4 each from the stacks to create a grid like this. Shuffle each of the rare and legendary cards and place them as a stack above the main grid, and then reveal 1 card each from both stacks. Then, depending on the player count, lay out a number of each of the different ball types next to the play area. Any ball tokens not used can be placed back in the box, and it's important to note that you'll always use all 5 Master Balls regardless of the player count. Each player will then take 1 player tile and give the starting player tile to the youngest player, and then you're ready to play. In a game of Pokemon Splendor, the player's goal is to be the first to reach 18 points. The points can be seen on the top left of each card here. The players will take turns throughout the game gathering different Pokeballs that will be required to catch Pokemon. And once Pokemon are caught, they'll also provide bonuses that can be used to give discounts to acquire new Pokemon. Players will also be able to evolve their Pokemon into more powerful Pokemon if they have the bonuses required, and at the end of the round in which someone reaches 18 points, whoever has the most points will be the winner. When it's your turn, you can take one of a few different actions, and then play would pass to the next player in clockwise direction. One of the actions you can take is to either collect 3 different Pokeballs or 2 of the same. For instance, a player could take 1 yellow, blue, and red Pokeball, and then their turn would be over and would pass to the next player. Or a player could take 2 yellow Pokeballs if they wanted to. It's important to note, however, that to take 2 balls of the same color, the stack of Pokeballs has to have at least 4 on it. So if after taking 2 Pokeballs, the next player wanted to try and take 2, they would have to choose a different stack because this one only has 2 remaining. Either way, after a player has taken 2 Pokeballs, if that's what they choose to do on their turn, play would then pass to the next player. It's also important to note that when selecting Pokeballs, you can never choose the Master Ball. To gain a Master Ball, you'll have to reserve a card, which is what we'll look at next. If a player wants to on their turn, instead of collecting Pokeballs, they could reserve a card from the display or from one of the decks. To do that, a player could choose any of the face-up cards in the middle grid or any of the cards from the top of one of these level 1, 2, or 3 decks. They could choose to take that card into their hand and then gain 1 Master Ball token. This is the only way that a player can gain a Master Ball. As soon as there's an empty spot in the grid, that card would be replaced immediately from the appropriate stack. It's important to note that players can only ever have 3 cards reserved in their hand at any one time. If a player wanted to reserve a 4th card, they wouldn't be able to do that until they play one of the cards from their hand. It's also important to note that players can never reserve a rare or legendary card. These cards can only be acquired by using the catch action, which we'll look at here in a moment. If a player wants to on their turn, they can also catch a Pokemon. This would allow them to play a Pokemon out into their display, which will give them points and potential bonuses, which will give discounts for acquiring new Pokemon later. To catch a Pokemon, a player has to pay the cost listed in the bottom left of their card. In this instance, this player would need 4 blue Pokeballs. The player doesn't have any other Pokemon existing that would give them a bonus or a discount, so they would have to pay these Pokeballs from their supply. They can do this with these 3 blue Pokeballs and this Master Ball, because Master Balls are wild and can count as any color. It's important to note that Pokemon can be caught and played into a player's display either from their hand of reserved cards, or they can catch any of the face-up Pokemon in the main grid. So for instance, if a player wanted to on their turn, they could have caught this Oddish since they had the required number of blue tokens. It's also important to note that players can also acquire these rare and legendary Pokemon in the exact same way as they can catch cards from their hand or from the middle display. These cards will cost more than the other cards in the display, and each rare and legendary card will also require 1 Master Ball in addition to any of the other balls. After a player has caught a Pokemon and played them into their display, play would then pass to the next player. Once players have Pokemon in their display, these bonuses on the top right of the card will give them discounts and make it easier to acquire new types of Pokemon. For instance, if this player wanted to on their turn catch this Oddish, they could do that because they have 1 wild Pokeball, 1 blue of the required type, and then a discount of 1 from their Pokemon's bonus. This would meet the cost of 3 and allow them to build that Pokemon or catch it and put it directly into their display. The chips would have to be discarded back to the supply, as usual. And once again, anytime there's an empty spot in the grid, it's immediately replaced from the appropriate deck. Now, the player would have a discount of both a blue and a black Pokeball for their future catching actions. At the end of a player's turn, no matter what action they took, they have to check and see if they have more than their allowed number of Pokeballs first. Each player is only allowed to keep 10 Pokeballs at the end of their turn. In this instance, this player has 11, so they would have to discard 1 of those Pokeballs back to the supply. Also, at the end of each player's turn, they have a chance to see if they can evolve 1 of their Pokemon. On the top of each of the level 1 and 2 Pokemon cards, there's an evolution chain shown, as well as a required bonus amount. For instance, for this Oddish to evolve into a Gloom, you would need to have a bonus in your display of 2 yellow Pokeballs. It's important to note that for evolution, you have to pay for it using bonuses on your cards. You can't pay for it using chips in your supply. You also have to have the required evolution card either in your hand or it has to be face up in the display. So in this instance, this player doesn't happen to have Oddish in their reserved hand of cards, but there is an Oddish face up in the display. And this player also has 2 yellow cards showing as a bonus in their caught Pokemon. Because of this, they would be able to evolve this Oddish into a Gloom. To do this, they would simply take the card from the display, refill the empty spot as usual anytime there's a gap, and then replace this card with the evolved version of the Pokemon. The card that they evolved would then go face down under their trainer tile. It's important to note that this doesn't count as an action, and it can be done after any of the other actions that you choose on your turn, either acquiring Pokeballs, catching Pokemon, or reserving a card. It's also important to note that only 1 Pokemon can be evolved per turn. It's also important to note that the rare and legendary Pokemon have double bonuses in their top right corner. These Pokemon are very powerful and will many times include points, but these double bonuses can be very helpful with evolving new Pokemon and acquiring new Pokemon from the display. Players will continue to play until 1 player has gained 18 points in their display. As soon as this happens, the round will be completed, making sure that each player has an equal number of turns, and then whoever has the most points will be the winner. If there's a tie, the player that has the most cards under their trainer tile will be the winner. Alright everybody, that was our video. Thanks so much for watching. We hope that it was helpful and we hope that it was informative. If you still have any questions about how to play the game, please comment below and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you if I can. And as always, if you find the content that we're putting out entertaining or helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon to be notified whenever we put out new content. Alright everybody, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you at the table.